Campers, it's me, Ari Lehman, the first Jason Voorhees. From Friday the 13th, I'm here with AJ, and he's got the juiciest slice ready for you. It's dripping with blood. Jason never dies.
With autumn upon us, and Halloween but a hop, skip, and a jump away, it's the time of year to consider ghosts, ghoulies, and of course, the boogeyman.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
I don't know about you, but as soon as the leaves start falling, Michael Myers starts lurking around in my mind. This year I'm going to talk about something that's been percolating for a while, an amalgamation of info and insights gleaned over many years. That brings me to the question, what's in a face? Thanks for checking this out. If anything about it trips your fancy, please like, subscribe, and share.
Yes.
So, what's in a face? Are the ugly more prone to evil? Those blessed with the current idea of beauty more virtuous? Or the middling cursed to neutrality? Does a face say anything? Or like the debunked pseudoscience of phrenology tried to map bumps on the skull to predict mental traits, is the very notion that the look of a face has any determining dynamic in someone's disposition to act evil all hogwash? That I can answer right away. Indeed it is, all claptrap.
Well, I'm sincerely glad to hear that, for all our sakes.
How a person looks only determines how they turn out based on how they are treated, but even that is an unsure predictor, offering no guarantee.
This is asinine!
It's easy to jump to the conclusion a less attractive person, someone widely considered ugly, might bear a grudge foisted upon them from a lifetime of maltreatment. Yet an incredibly attractive person can gain such a sense of entitlement and superiority, they become needlessly mean, even cruel.
What?
And they don't even have the understandable motives, since they have always gotten their heart's desire. They're just jerks for sake of being jerks. There's a wise aphorism, used to good effect in a 90s film classic, stupid is as stupid does, and I think it can be applied here, as in, evil is as evil does.
I'm a demon. The truth hurts.
What capacity appearance has to temper a person into something good or inhuman is only one in any number of factors and variables that determine such things. To claim anything else would be spin. So with all that out of the way, what's in a face? Maybe the question should be, what relevance does a face bear when the psychology behind it is forever trapped in an evil event in the past?
Michael!
In the Halloween franchise's initial, I'll say 3 continuities, when it comes to preeminent slasher villain Michael Myers, his adult face appeared only once, at the tail end of the very first film. Otherwise, a firm truth about Michael Myers, he was all but never shown or seen without his infamous mask. Michael was designed to be the personification of lurking evil, the archetypical murderous outsider, the other with mysterious motives, and a yen for terrorizing and killing those whom he set his sights on, for whatever his motives happened to be.
I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding.
The thing of it is, what I'll call Michael's human face is totally important, but only in one regard. Otherwise, it bears no importance at all.
In even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong.
Let me elaborate. With only one element of consequence, which I'll get to later, his face isn't representative of the true him, the dark personality he was only able to suppress to the age of 6.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale...
Most of us don't succumb to the shadow self for the entirety of our lives, but the call of the abyss was obviously too great to ignore for Michael, right from the start.
Emotionless face and the blackest eyes.
and to it he was lost completely.
The devil's eyes.
So, why the mask, short of living out a gimp or dominant fetish? Why is it so pertinent beyond hiding a rather normal face and making him a scarier figure than he would otherwise be?
I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Simply put, the mask is his true identity, the outward manifestation of the evil Dr. Loomis recognized in the boy. An interesting conceit Leatherface might have something to say about, if he didn't speak exclusively in grunts and pig squeals. A conceit that seems to have arisen out of the very ether of time, as masks have been with mankind at least as far back as 7000 BC, when they were employed in rituals and ceremonies. Not to mention, from the storytelling standpoint, masks have always played a prominent role, at once concealing identity and offering, oftentimes, a scary or startling front, so it's no surprise they are so prominent in folklore and the horror genre. Unmaskings were a trope long before giallo and later slashers adopted the element. Revealing the face of the villain is often eminently important to explaining an outcome. Historically speaking, from masquerades to plague doctors, to desperados to revolutionaries, to executioners' hoods to the hoods of maniacs targeting lovers' lanes, to trick-or-treaters to bedroom frolics, masks have always maintained a prevalent role in society, therefore providing a strong foothold for wide representation in pop culture. Masks allow us to adopt alternate identities and hide our true selves, which is part and parcel with the quote-unquote masks we wear as we operate within our lives.
Yep, that stands up to scrutiny.
Very few don't in some fashion proffer an at least slightly better facsimile of themselves to represent their best interests in social situations, a best foot forward as it were. For Michael, the mask represents the id he flagrantly unleashes upon a world he considers only in regard to fulfilling his desires, and the mask is a big part of the proclamation of his intent.
Just try to understand what we're dealing with here. Don't underestimate it.
The true self given free rein so that he isn't hindered in carrying out his baser desires, be they personal or spurned on by supernatural means. The face underneath means nothing. Its very normalcy a mirage Michael himself seems to disdain.
Don't you think we could refer to it as him?
If you say so.
But even by Michael's reasoning, that's a mistake, because he's transcended being human right into demon territory, having undergone a supremely evil apotheosis. But prior to donning the mask, that aspect was deactivated, like a pulled plug.
Michael?
There's a reason he didn't kill Dr. Loomis and Nurse Chambers, which would have been in his best interest, to prevent them from sounding the alarm beyond the facility of his escape. And that reason was simple. He needed the mask. He needed the thing that would reactivate him. By happenstance, he found the perfect representation, too, as vacant as his conscience. So much more appropriate than the clown mask from his youth. Because there's nothing funny about what he does. When in a moment of desperation Laurie lifted the mask, it was akin to pulling his murder fuse. Those brief few seconds of vulnerability revealed everything about the broken psychology of a mission-oriented man-child caught forever in the horror of his own making, a horror he would certainly replicate until stopped. It's like without the mask, he's reduced to being a convenience killer, targeting mechanics for jumpsuits and transportation, and can only do his stalking and pleasure killing when endowed with the power it grants him. Without it, he's nothing, stripped of his fearsome identity, which is why, even at his own detriment, it's more important to get the mask back on. The mask is the only thing that imbues him with the ability to assert control in the first place. Without it, he's just that vacant-eyed child who killed his sister. As I mentioned before, unmaskings have a long and varied history, but other than that initial glance, such a requisite scene never caught on in this particular franchise. There's an interesting contrast in another preeminent slasher villain, one Jason Voorhees. A character born out of Michael's success. His franchise made a point to always reveal his evolving face. It represents the deep difference between the characters, their motives, and how they feel about themselves.
Oh, poor baby. No wonder you wore this thing.
Her compassion? Wins her no brownie points. Relentless Jason hid his face, aware of his repulsiveness, even using it as a means of intimidation. So showing his deformed mug bore greater relevance, because it was insight into his inner character. It was often an indicator of his emotional or physical state, too. Michael's face might as well be that of an automaton, blank, requiring the mask to fully articulate and free the submerged personality, because any face that's too human simply doesn't suit his wicked purposes. After that initial appearance, there was never a need to see Michael's face, because his face is that immaterial. Whether it's scarred or aged, it's still that same callously impassive, emotionless countenance. The cool, scary, unrelenting indifference of the mask represents him perfectly, whereas Jason is hiding his self-perceived ugliness, ugliness reflected in his ghastly actions. Michael embraces his otherness and proceeds accordingly. Of course, the TV version of Halloween 2 offered a glimpse of a tween Michael.
Michael, please don't be angry with me. I'm your sister.
The less said about that, probably the better, but I choose to consider it a non-canon appearance, perhaps an example of the drugged and dreaming mind, skewing a vague memory, and in no way representative of any actual reality. So, what's the one aspect of Michael's face that's important? Potential. The potential to be anything. From the anonymous nobody in the crowd that's all but indistinguishable because they're passably good looking, but otherwise unremarkable, to the standout who draws the limelight, making a clear point about how judging anyone based on their face is misguided at best and wrong-headed at worst. The face of Michael Myers reveals a man who could have been the jock or the theater kid, the motorhead or the valedictorian, the science nerd or the class president, anything except the vicious and plotting killer he turned out to be. That's where the mask takes on such importance, revealing the extent his psyche is fractured, so much so his very face is ultimately a weakness. I think it's no coincidence that the frenetic and brief reveal was not only included, but saved for the ending, satisfying for what many audience members was intense curiosity to see what the scheming stalker looked like under the altered visage of Captain Kirk. The thing of it is, ambiguity is compelling too, such as how the original Black Christmas ended without ever revealing the killer's face. But as brilliant as that ending was, and still is, giving the cryptic killer, Billy, or whoever he was, an air of unending mystery, it was ultimately fundamentally unsatisfying to many audience members. The mystery is powerful, but without the face of evil, that lingering question,
What do you see?
the enigma can prove bedeviling. That Michael bears the very face of normalcy says it all, about him, about us, about the human animal and its baser side. The point is that even though it's shocking, it shouldn't be. Any face can be the face of a monster, no matter how enticing, engaging, or even beautiful.
You're just like me.
So, what else is in a face? Satisfaction. The satisfaction of getting to know the face of evil for what it is. The face of anyone who snaps and goes off the deep end, or just one day makes the calculated choice to end life. In modern terms, that's pretty terrifying.
Well, we can certainly say you're not afraid to be reductive.
I was able to meet the man who portrayed the face of Michael Myers, Tony Moran. I discussed my suppositions and opinions about all this, and he felt I was on the right track, which inspired me to make this video. For such a brief appearance, it can't be taken for granted how much depth and nuance he brought to the performance.
Not another word!
Well, I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Thanks for humoring my ramblings. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me for whatever I'm up to next time. Bye now.
Bye, creepy man! Keep it creepy!
He's a weird guy. Goodbye! Ah, yeah!